Welcome to this special NFC Championship game recap edition of the Football Game Tonight podcast. I'm your host, John Kuzma. We had two solid teams going at it in the NFC Championship game. The San Francisco 49ers and the Detroit Lions. Early on, the Detroit Lions got off to a really good start in this game. So what I think happened, when the Lions were ahead is, the 49ers got a spark from Christian McCaffrey. The Lions were really clicking on all cylinders early on in this game. And the thing that really kept the 49ers alive was Christian McCaffrey and how well he ran the ball. He had some crucial first downs early on in this game. Then you look at what he did at the beginning of that second quarter where he catches like a flat pass to the left side of the field, goes down the left sideline, breaks a tackle from C.J. Gardner-Johnson, gets all the way down in scoring position. That really woke the 49ers up. And then, Christian McCaffrey, kept his foot on the gas. When your team is trailing like that early on in a game, you need someone that can step up and pump some life back into the team. That's what Christian McCaffrey did. He did a great job of, making sure that he didn't, fall off when his team needed it the most. Because if Christian McCaffrey didn't, keep his team alive early on in that game, who knows? We could be talking about the Detroit Lions going to the Super Bowl. Christian McCaffrey was not about to let that happen. He definitely made the plays that he needed to make. Brandon Aiyuk had some catches. Deebo Samuel had some catches. On the defensive side of the ball, a guy that stepped up in the first half and kept the 49ers in that game was Nick Bosa. A couple sacks in that first half, had a nice tackle against the run. So really the 49ers superstars were stepping up and making the plays they had to make even when things weren't going their way. Even when it looked like the game was slipping away from them, those guys said, hey, we got to be even better because it's on us to make the plays that our team needs to make. Because without those plays, we could be talking about a different ball game because Detroit was firing on all cylinders early on in this game. There's no doubt about that. That's why the score was, lopsided at halftime. What was it, 24-7? Lions were leading. So, Christian McCaffrey, one guy I really have to point out in that game, ran hard the whole game, just kept chipping away at the Lions defense. And eventually, later on in the game, that paid off for the 49ers team. But, great work by Christian McCaffrey, great work by Nick Bosa in that first half. Nick Bosa, getting to Jared Goff, putting the pressure on the Lions quarterback, just saying, hey, things might not be going our way right now, but you're going to have to keep an eye on me, after halftime when we go into the second half, because I'm not letting anything slide. I'm going to stay on you the whole game. I'm going to make it tough for the Lions. That's what Nick Bosa did. Brandon Aiyuk, you have to talk about him. He did a great job in this game. I think when you look at what happened in that second half, right away it was Deebo Samuel who made some nice catches to start that second half and kind of energize this 49ers team. But really what happened is, the 49ers get a huge stop on defense. And then what happens, Brandon Aiyuk goes down the field. Brock Purdy loads up, throws, like a 55-yard pass to Brandon Aiyuk. It hits the Lions defensive back, the Lions defender, right in I think it hit him in the helmet, maybe hit him in the face mask. It pops up in the air. The ball pops up in the air. And Brandon Aiyuk, 55 yards down the field, is able to maintain his concentration, lays out for this catch and makes this catch down near the goal line for the 49ers. That was the play where you could feel all the momentum shift in that stadium. It was a totally different game from that moment going forward because Brandon Aiyuk basically said, I'm not going to give up on this play. It takes an unbelievable amount of concentration to not only sprint all the way downfield, but to maintain concentration throughout the process of that catch, to stick with it, lay out, make that catch. I can't put into words how big that was for the 49ers in this game. You want to talk about a spark. If Brandon Ayuk doesn't make that catch, that could change the game as well, because that was the play that really rallied the 49ers in this game, just because it was such a big-time play and such a big-time moment when the 49ers needed it the most, when it looked like it wasn't, possible to make that catch. It's not easy to sprint 55 yards downfield. It's not easy for your quarterback to launch it and just put it in an area where a guy has a shot at it and then it bounces off the defender. It's so easy for the receiver to lose track of the ball in that situation and just let the play get away from them. We've seen it happen so many times. Brandon Ayuk refused to let that happen. He was able to track the ball off the bounce, lay out, make the catch. Huge play, then comes back and, gets a touchdown right after that. So Brandon Ayuk, definitely earned his paycheck in this game. Did a good job of, providing that big play that the 49ers needed, that swung the momentum in this game. Not only that, woke that crowd up. The crowd was completely different after that play. The belief of that team, that 49ers team, completely changed after that play. They all thought, we can win this game now. Without that Brandon Ayuk play, do they all have that same mindset? I doubt it. Does the 49ers fans get charged up after Brandon Ayuk misses that catch? I doubt it, but because he was able to make that catch, it was a complete 180, a totally different game. So Brandon Ayuk, he deserves his praise for what he was able to do. And I'm a firm believer that catch down the field, off the bounce, sticking with it, maintaining concentration, somehow able to dig that play out, dig the football out and make that catch. To me, that's the play that helped the 49ers get over the hump and make it to the Super Bowl. That play helped them punch their ticket. Without it, I doubt that the 49ers are able to win this game. Christian McCaffrey kept chopping the Lions up late in this game. Like I said, he was fantastic in this game as well. Didn't take his foot off the gas in that second half either. Made the plays that he needed to make. Was really good. And then you look at, some of the other plays that the 49ers were able to make in this game. Defense, the Lions kept going for it on fourth down. I thought the 49ers defense did a good job of getting stops on those fourth down plays and getting their defense off the field, getting the ball back for their offense. Without those stops on those fourth down plays, we could be talking about a different game. Dan Campbell likes to gamble. He likes to go for it on fourth down, just rolls the dice. Did it in this game. And, Josh Reynolds was not able to make a couple crucial catches for the Lions in this game, but you have to give the 49ers defense credit. They got the stops that they needed on those fourth down plays. They kept their season alive by getting those stops, because it's a huge momentum swing for the Lions if they pick up those fourth downs. They go to Josh Reynolds on the first one. I'm not sure what 49ers defender it was, but he got in there a little bit, was just in the vicinity, and I think Josh Reynolds heard the footsteps, because that's a catch that an NFL receiver should make, but because the 49ers defensive back was in the area, was closing in, Josh Reynolds heard the footsteps, wasn't able to complete the process of the catch. You got to give the 49ers defense credit for that. That's what they had to do. And that panned out for the 49ers in their favor, getting off the field, getting those stops on those big fourth down plays. Another guy we have to talk about in this game is Brock Purdy. In that second half, I thought Brock Purdy did a great job of using his legs to extend plays. He leaned on his athleticism when the 49ers needed it the most, had some nice runs, tucking the football, running it, and just picking up as much as he could. I mean, he was a nightmare for that Lions defense. He kept, tucking it, getting as much as he could, and, he was finding daylight. Let's face it. He was finding daylight and picking up big gains, moving the chains, extending drives, and keeping things going for the 49ers offense. Do the 49ers win this game without Brock Purdy's legs? I have my doubts on that too, because he was just determined to win this game. And sometimes you have to get it done in different ways. Sometimes you're not going to be able to make all the throws that you want to make. So how can you find a way to win the football game? Brock Purdy was able to do that by tucking the football, taking off with it, running, getting as much as he could. He did a good job in this game of just setting his team up. And it's so deflating for the opposite team. It was so deflating for the Lions because Brock Purdy showed remarkable escapability in this game. His escapability tilted the odds late in the game in the 49ers' favor. Because if he can't get away, if he can't move, if he starts taking sacks late in that game, what's going to happen? The Lions are going to get amped up. They're going to get charged up, and they're going to start feeling it like they were in that first half. Brock Purdy refused to let that happen. He was tucking the football, picking up big chunks of yardage, getting his team in scoring position. So Brock Purdy did a good job in this game. Early on in that first half, he made some throws to Ayuk and Samuel, but there wasn't a lot of offense. They weren't able to generate a lot. In the second half, it was a completely different story. This was the game that was really the tale of two halves. A 49ers team that didn't show up in the first half, but was able to flip the switch and turn it on in the second half. Brock Purdy was a big part of it. The plays that he was able to make, the throw to Ayuk down the field that, ricocheted, and, Brandon Ayuk was able to stick with it. That was a nice throw by Purdy where he dropped back, planted his feet, loaded up a little bit, got it in the vicinity of his receiver. In these playoff games, you're battling and competing and doing everything you can to give your team a chance. He did that on that play to Brandon Ayuk. So you look at Brock Purdy in this game, he definitely stepped up and did his thing in that second half, and Lions fans had to be disappointed with, not being able to wrap him up, not being able to get him down and get their defense off the field, because Brock Purdy was able to, he's such a shifty guy. He draws back and he starts, drifting to his left. Then what happens? He plants his left foot in the ground and then starts, changing direction to his right, and then decides he's going to tuck the football and run with it, and then kind of gashes the defense, and the defense is kind of wondering what's going on. I mean, Brock Purdy, he's an athlete, and that team has a lot of talent, and Brock Purdy might not have the biggest arm in the world, but his accuracy is good. He's an athlete that can take off and run the football. He showcased that in this game, did what he had to do. So give Brock Purdy some praise for what he was able to do late in this game. Really wasn't happening in the first half, but, in the NFL, you got to find a way. Brock Purdy was able to do that. He did it with his feet, did it with his legs, and the Lions really didn't have an answer for that late in the game. They really needed Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, the rest of those guys on that defensive front to step up and kind of close in on Brock Purdy, but he's elusive. He is. He's an elusive player that can get loose and, move those chains and keep drives alive. And what happens is the rest of the team starts feeding off that. That's what happened in this game. And, late in the game, what happens, the 49ers get a nice, nice run down the right sideline from Christian McCaffrey that set up Elijah Moore touchdown that it did seal the game for the 49ers. I think, Christian McCaffrey, he had that nice run down the right sideline, but when he got tackled, it kind of landed on his head a little bit. So he had to come out of the game. The 49ers bring in Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore is able to punch it in. Then, that gave the 49ers what they needed to seal the deal and punch their ticket to the Super Bowl. Now, the Lions kind of drove down the field, and I don't want to say storm back because they didn't really storm back, but they drove downfield and scored a touchdown. What happened is they got down near the goal line, and the Lions made a crucial mistake down by the goal line. They decided to run the football. And what happened is the 49ers were able to stuff, I think it was David Montgomery, down by the goal line, which cost the Lions a timeout. Well, because the Lions were down by 10, they needed all three of their timeouts to extend the game. So by the 49ers stuffing that run, they basically were able to clinch this victory because the Lions had to burn that timeout, which meant they had to onside kick it after they scored. The Lions would score on fourth down. Jameson Williams scored a touchdown in the back of the end zone. But that play, which was kind of a boneheaded play by the Lions running it because they had to realize that they had to preserve their timeouts. But give the 49ers goal line defense some credit because if David Montgomery slices through that defense and punches it in on that run, then the Lions are able to preserve their timeouts. But the goal line defense for the 49ers stuffs David Montgomery. The Lions have to burn a timeout to stop the clock. Yeah, they were able to score on the next play to Jameson Williams in the back of the end zone, but the damage was done by the 49ers goal line defense stopping that run play. If the Lions don't call that run play and they were able to score, they preserve all three timeouts. Now they don't have to onside kick it and they can stop the clock on every down with their timeouts and force a punt and get the ball back. But the goal line defense of the 49ers stuffs the play, stuffs the run play. And let's face it, the Lions are usually pretty good at running the ball down by the goal line. They have a good offensive line, but the 49ers' effort, their will, their determination with that goal line defense to stop that running play and cost the Lions that timeout, make them burn that timeout. That also was a crucial play in this game for the 49ers because what happens after that is the Lions had to kick the onside kick. They kick an onside kick, and one of the Lions, kick return, or I should say onside kickoff team guys actually got his hands on the football, but it kind of tipped the football downfield. I think George Kittle jumped on the loose football, and then all the other 49ers jumped on top of George Kittle to protect the football and make sure the ball didn't pop out anywhere. That sealed the game for the 49ers, which, got them to the Super Bowl, like we said earlier in this episode. 49ers defense as a whole, early on we're kind of on their heels a little bit, thanks to a strong start by the Lions, but in that second half, made those halftime adjustments. Steve Wilks makes some halftime adjustments, gets more effort out of his players, and that ultimately helps the 49ers win this game because the Lions couldn't score in that second half. They got the touchdown late in the game to Jameson Williams, but by then it was too late and the game was out of reach. So great halftime adjustments by the 49ers defense. Steve Wilks, the defensive coordinator, doing everything he had to do to make sure that the Lions couldn't come out and keep their foot on the gas in that second half. They deserve their applause for that. Kyle Shanahan did a good job of making sure he lit a fire under his team and made sure that, the 49ers offense were able to put the points on the board that they needed to get themselves out of a hole and, climb back or claw back into this football game, I should say. The adjustments they made on offense were they told Brock Purdy to tuck it and run if there's nothing there. That ended up being crucial for the 49ers offense in this game. Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel out of the gate in that second half. Those early catches right away in the third quarter that energized his team. Taking the shot down the field to Brandon Ayuk. Those are the plays that, charged this team up and made them believe that they could get back in this game and win this game. Because it could have went south if the Lions would have played that second half like they played that first half. It could have went south for the 49ers, but give credit to that team. They didn't hang their head. Give credit to that coaching staff. They made those second half adjustments. They went in at halftime down, 24-7, and had to figure out a game plan to give this team a fighting chance. Kyle Shanahan, Steve Wilks, the rest of that coaching staff were able to do that. Telling Brock Purdy to run football, smart, making sure Brandon Ayuk was on standby for when his number was called. That was smart. Making sure the defense played with more energy and effort in that second half because, it takes all 11 defenders on the defensive side of the ball. You need 11 helmets to the football. Early on, when the 49ers were trailing, it was Nick Bosa that was kind of the gel holding things together with his 2 sacks, with him playing the run tough because the Lions have 2 good backs in David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Those guys can chop you up, but Nick Bosa was saying, I'm not letting this game get too far out of hand. Yeah, things went bad in that first half, but Nick Bosa was all effort in that first half with the 2 sacks, clamping down on the run when he could, giving maximum effort until the other 10 defenders on that 49ers defense could wake up and get it going too, which happened in the second half. Nick Bosa was, I thought he was better in the first half personally when the 49ers were trailing. In the second half, I thought the other 10 defenders woke up and did answer the call. They did respond and find a way to get those stops, particularly on those 4th down plays that Dan Campbell rolled the dice and decided to go for it. Can't say enough good things about the 49ers defense on those plays. So that was the story of this game. Ultimately, we will remember this NFC Championship game for the 49ers as a tale of 2 halves. It wasn't the start they were looking for. It could have went better for the Lions in that first half, but it's a 4-quarter game. And ultimately, the 49ers put together a better 4 quarters than the Lions were able to do. It took them, deep into the 3rd and 4th quarter to step up and, win this football game. But they were able to do that. The Lions weren't able to respond in that second half like they needed to. So that says a lot about the 49ers' toughness because they took a punch in that first half and then responded in that second half. How many teams would have folded after being down 24-7 at halftime? Believe me when I say this, a lot of teams wouldn't have been able to take those punches from the Lions when the Lions were clicking and then, respond in the second half by battling it out and digging themselves out of that hole. It took a gutsy performance from these 49ers to respond like that. They were able to do it. That's why they're going to the Super Bowl. So now we'll see another Kansas City Chiefs and 49ers Super Bowl. Last time these 2 teams met up in the Super Bowl, remember, the 49ers looked like they were going to win that Super Bowl. Then late in the game, the Chiefs rallied and were able to win that game. This time around, the 49ers have to find a way to close it out and win the Super Bowl and bring that Vince Lombardi trophy back to the Bay Area. We know they have a talented team that's more than capable of doing it. We know Brock Purdy is an athlete that can create problems for the Chiefs with his ability to tuck the football and run like he did against these Lions late in this football game. Then you look at all the weapons that the 49ers have. Christian McCaffrey, the best running back in football. Brandon Ayuk, a guy who has made huge strides since joining this football team. I mean, he's such a critical part of this offense for the 49ers. They still got George Kittle, who's a physical run blocker and a guy that can make plays down the field as a receiver. Deebo Samuel, who is so physical, that brings a toughness and a tenacity to the 49ers offense. And then on the other side of the ball, you got Nick Bosa, the great defensive end who is more than capable of putting the pressure on Patrick Mahomes that can help the 49ers win this football game. It's going to be a good game. Patrick Mahomes, great quarterback. We all know what he's capable of. We'll see if the 49ers can win one more and hoist that Vince Lombardi trophy. I'm John Kuzma. That's all I got for this special NFC Championship edition of the Football Game Tonight podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm signing off.